Hi everyone, my name is Vivek Narain. I'm the founder and CEO of the Quorum Club, a globally inspired contemporary members only club that is the first of its kind in India.
For a lot of people, hospitality is their ultimate entrepreneurship dream, and they aspire to start a restaurant or a cafe and quit their stressful corporate world career. In this episode of the Founder Thesis podcast, we speak to a hospitality founder who has built and scaled a truly unique hospitality business and given a new age of avatar to a very old business. Most of you would be aware of the concept of clubs. Iconic clubs like the Gymkhana Club in Delhi have a membership wait time that is measured in decades. Vivek saw that there is a massive gap between such old world clubs and the young India, which also aspired for a third place where they can belong to a community, work, experience culture, or just unwind. And that is the space that the Quorum Club is filling. In this fascinating conversation, Vivek explains what this industry looks like, the business model of the clubs, the playbook of scaling a very heavily service-oriented business. Stay tuned to get a peek into the fascinating world of clubs and subscribe to the Founder Thesis podcast for more such sector-specific deep dives.
I want to kind of understand what exactly, you did give a short headline of Quorum, but what exactly is it? Just help me understand that a little better.
Yeah, so listen, Quorum is a contemporary version of what is a private members club in today's day and age. And, we got inspired by what was happening around the world over the last 15, 20 years. There's been a renaissance of these clubs. And we borrowed from what we thought would be appropriate for India. So if I can tell you fundamentally what it rests on kind of five pillars. It is a hospitality space at the end of the day. Um, it is focused on building a community of like-minded people. We use programming and culture as a way not only to engage the people, but also as a self-selective bias to attract, those like-minded people. Art and culture, or rather art and design, are an important part of it in the sense that we wanted to create a creative space. And then wellness is a lifestyle choice that is becoming very prevalent in everyday's life. The Quorum brings all these together. And that's really what it is. So it is a members club that brings all of these components together. And it is a quintessential third space, a place to work, entertain, dine, and get culturally engaged and have an extension of lifestyle.
So the term third space, I guess, kind of became popular after Starbucks, right? Like Starbucks was positioned as the third space, which is like neither your home nor your office. What help me understand this third space as an industry? What's the addressable market for this industry? Uh,
Yeah. So listen, I think the world of work is changing. The way we work, how we work, what we work on, and and I say it's changing because it's not only we're in the first innings of this change. So, and I think it's funny. I had a conversation yesterday on the future of work with a ISP professor who's written a book around the subject. So, the construct of the office is relatively new. And actually he sort of made a reference all the way back to the East India Company. They had a very interesting example of that. But I think post COVID, especially, people realize that they kind of always knew that they could work from anywhere, but post COVID, they realized that they probably did better work, when they were in these sort of third spaces. Now, third spaces for different people will mean different things. I think functionally, it's a space where you feel comfortable. That's not your home and not your work, and you're productive. So I think for us, that's what it was. But I speak about it only in the utility of work, but it's equal in its utility for socializing. It's equal in its utility for the consumption of culture, ideas, wellness, and lifestyle. So I think that's really what the third space is. And Akshay, I think it's interesting to point out here that this is very much our intent when we started this business. It was not an afterthought. It was not a force fit. So the ergonomics of our place were built with this very much in mind. The way the furniture interacts, the way the space and design interacts, the way the sound and the music interacts, the way the lighting interacts was very much thought through from day zero in the design. So it's not something that was, baad ki bar, bar ke baad kind of an afterthought for us. Yeah.
Can you give me some examples of what you mean in terms of the intentional design of Quorum as a third space?
Yeah. So, when we looked at the furniture for our members' lounge, we said, listen, I said, people are going to come and work here in the daytime. People are going to come and meet here. The same space is going to be a place where people are going to socialize, dine, entertain, consume culture, listen to music. So when we were visualizing the design, the choice of furniture also was appropriate. Is it too reclining? Is it too low? Can you eat on it? Can you use your laptop on it? So I think that's what I mean by, intent. The acoustics, the sound, were very much, I knew where we were going to we have a space called the Den in the Quorum in Gurgaon. We have a little bit of a stage in all our clubs, right? They were, propped up spaces where people sat with a little bit of a bird's eye view, but they were intended to become stages for conversations and sort of performances. So it was very much thought through from day one, even the way we lit those spaces up at some different times of the day. So that's what I meant, but it was intent, from design, from the get-go, from sort of ground zero.
Why are you the right founder to build Quorum? What's your background?
I don't
Can
know.
you
I don't
connect
know.
those
Listen,
dots?
yeah. So, I can talk about it now. At the time, uh, I was unemployable. Uh, but I think fundamentally, actually, I was fortunate enough to grow up with a good network and met a lot of interesting people. I'm an
You
ex.
grew up in Delhi.
I grew up in Delhi. I grew up in Delhi. I
What
come
did
from
your
the services.
parents do?
My grandfather was a general in the army. My father was a fighter pilot. My mother came from a big, well-regarded business house. They all went to good schools. They were generationally sort of educated, so had influence in the old school. Maybe not necessarily had the money, but had the influence and access. So I was very fortunate to grow up with those surroundings. Um, I was always an extrovert. I've been a curious human being. So I'm sort of, I'm always trying to learn up on new stuff. I'm good with people. So that was part of the ideas and community part. I was fortunate enough to marry my wife, who's actually, so let me rephrase. I'm actually the co-founder. She doesn't have the official title, but very much the co-founder of our business. She grew up with a very different background. She grew up with a lot of food and beverage around her. She grew up with a lot of exposure to global tastes and cultures. So the two of us came together, and I think fundamentally, I was at a crossroads. I was a banker for many years. I did a private equity transaction in the hospitality space. So it gave me a little bit of a front row view on what was happening in hospitality from a numbers perspective. And then I hit a
This you talk about
crossroads.
at Yes Bank. You did the private
Well,
equity.
actually, I started with Standard Charter in New York. I joined Yes Bank. I was actually one of the first employees of the bank. And then I did a private equity transaction in my personal capacity as an advisor to a large US investor. We did
Okay.
something called a special purpose acquisition corporation. It was one of these funky, very creative structures that were, that have become popular and unpopular over the last 10, 15 years. We were one of the first people that did that. And we bought
Wow.
a number of businesses in the hospitality space. So that, by default, I got into hospitality or got exposed to hospitality. But post that, I continued my career in hospitality. I joined Fairmont Hotels. At the time, it's now part of the Accor sort of brand portfolio, but at the time it was owned independently by the Qatari Investment Authority. It had three brands, Raffles, Fairmont, and Swissôtel. So I ran the development business, built a lot of relationships with the real
What is
estate community.
what does that mean? Development? Like what does that
So
function of?
development in hotel, Akshay, is the guy who's the deal making guy. He goes out, finds developers that are thinking of building a hotel, convinces them that they should build. But we were the deal making guys. So we had to be what I call inch deep, mile wide, know a lot about, a little about everything, but not a lot about anything. So
Yeah.
I was that guy. But what it did was it gave me a good understanding of real estate, location, understanding the mind of the developer, built my network. And then Fairmont at the time, India hospitality sort of now is quite exciting, but 12, 13, 14, Fairmont at the time decided to pull out of India. And I was at a crossroads. I said, should I move with them overseas or should I remain in India? And during that crossroads, I think I was unemployable, actually. So I was forced into entrepreneurship.
Well,
And
why do you say that? You were, I mean, you've got like private equity experience, and you were
well,
probably
I
an
did a whole
decent
bunch
makers.
I'd done a whole bunch of stuff and I felt like I could do a lot more. And I felt like a traditional job was not going to get me excited and out of bed. So I wanted
Right.
to do something a little bit more meaningful. And I said, let's do something on our own. And I got my wife, I said, let's put our heads together, our hands together and think something out. And I noticed during my stint at Fremont that these members clubs were popping up all around the world and no one was doing it in India. A lot of people some people were talking about it, but no one had really done it. And I thought that, I thought there was a gap, and I felt like for the reasons I mentioned on our specific skill sets, I thought we were um, sort of well positioned to perhaps, do it. And yeah, it's been a journey. We're kind of at a slightly different phase we were than 7, 8 years ago, but yeah, one can look back and say, I mean, it was a bit of a bold and silly idea 7, 8 years ago. It's kind of worked now, so one thinks that it's a good idea. But I think any business when it's starting off is not a business till it becomes one. I think we are starting to become one. 7 or 8 years into our journey.
Amazing. Uh, the concept of members club has been around for like a century, right? Like Gymkhana would be like a iconic members club, Central Delhi. So, what is what is different about you said that you saw members clubs coming up. So I'm assuming this would be like a version 2 or a version 3 of what a Gymkhana was at one point of time. What's the difference here?
Oh yeah, so there's a massive difference, and it depends on. It may seem nuanced to some people, but in my mind, there's a massive difference. And um, so first of all, a gymkhana or those traditional clubs are what we call sort of athletic clubs, right? They build a community around sport. So you have, tennis and squash and what have you, and those people that was one. Number two is they're 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, right? And their community was created 100 years ago. Their children, grandchildren, in some cases, great grandchildren, it's been passed down. Uh, so the community was built with that historical perspective. I read a book, Akshay, around the time when I was starting this business called The King of Clubs. It was written by a gentleman called Bob Dedman. Bob was a lawyer in America in the 60s that started a company called the Club Corporation of America. And when I read that book, I drew a lot of parallels to what was happening in America in the 60s and what's happening in India today. Uh, by the way, Club Corporation of America runs and operates about 150 clubs around the world, right?
Okay.
And primarily US focused, and they're a publicly listed company. And
Okay.
he posited in his book that America in the 60s was a country on the move. Clubs existed in the past. Their membership philosophy was more about keeping people out as opposed to letting them in. And there was a whole new sort of crop of people that were moving to new cities or cities for economic opportunities and wanted a place of belonging, right? So I think I drew a lot of parallels to where America was then and where we are now, especially in the context of our business. And we started in Gurgaon, which is your quintessential new town. It didn't exist 20 years ago. And I think there were a lot of interesting people that didn't know each other, and there were no places that brought them together. And if I may, going back to that Gymkhana analogy, those communities are less relevant in in today's India. I'm not saying they're not relevant. I think there's a whole new relevance in our country. So, we had an opportunity to blank canvas, start a community from scratch of interesting people, which, by the way, has some of those people, has some of the established, the upcoming, the new, and people said, "Oh, that's oil and water; they won't mix." But I think I instinctively knew they would mix, and I think we've kind of proven it right in what we're doing. And like I said, it's early days, but we're seeing this massive opportunity. And by the way, it's not about money, actually. So it's about interesting people doing interesting thing, and we're building this like-minded community around ideas and where you're going, not necessarily where you're coming from. So I think there's a big opportunity. I thought so. I kind of now know it. But when we started, it was an assumption and a hunch.
Uh, I'm going to recap what I understood. So, like a first difference is sports oriented, whereas this is more of arts culture. Uh, and the second difference is, in a way, you could say like Gymkhana represents old money. Either you inherit or you wait 1 or 2 decades to get a membership. Uh, Quorum represents new money, like a startup founder who would be like a ideal customer profile for you.
No, it's a little bit more nuanced. So let me try and rephrase that. Actually, so one is there still exists different type of clubs,
Mm.
right? So I use that as a way how they build the community versus how we build the community. I think there are broadly four categories of clubs. There are what we call athletic clubs that are sports oriented. They're what you may call it, golf clubs that are, country clubs, what have you, that have sports plus the golf, right? In India, we haven't seen a massive proliferation because land is too expensive. They are what I call residential clubs that could either be in the condominium or within neighborhoods that
Yes,
exist as well, that get a
most
kind of geography.
yeah,
Yeah.
most
And
developers
then,
have a
yeah, yeah.
complex.
And then there's what we call city clubs, right? City clubs have always existed. London has 250 of them, actually, funny enough. The city club has evolved into what we're doing, which is kind of a lifestyle club. That is basically it's work, play, entertain, dine, wellness, well-being, culture, and a big focus on food and beverage and experiences, right? Not that A to P subsidized, chai
Oh,
that you get, right?
got it.
So that's on the different types of clubs. Then in terms of what you said is on community, I think listen, those communities were built 3 generations ago. You could say it's old money, but it's old relevance, right? Money is not the fact. Money comes, goes, rotates, circles around, what have you. I think it's about relevance. We're building a community of what's relevant today. So it's a function of those who were relevant in the past. It's a function of those that are becoming relevant. It's a function of those who will become relevant. What is that common denominator that we're looking at? Is something that we try and use our lens, our filter when we are building our community.
Okay, understood. Uh, Can you help me understand how does the business part of it work? Is this like I think these traditional clubs are like non-profits. I don't think they're set up as a private limited corporation. How is Quorum set up, and what is the what's the economic model?
Yeah. I think some of these old clubs, and I'm not entirely sure, they were granted the land by the government on some sort of a subsidy, and hence they're committee driven and what have you. So none of that, as far as we're concerned, right? We're a full commercial venture. We're a private limited company. We were actually a LLP. We recently become a private limited company, but either which way, a private for-profit enterprise, right?
Okay.
Yeah, listen, the business model uh, is as follows. City clubs, which is again the broad genre in which we develop, should in theory make 50% of its revenue from the sale of the consumption of food and beverage, right? So again, I'm going to reiterate this a couple of times in our conversation, Akshay. We are fundamentally a hospitality business, right? We've got 550 employees, 195 of them now are in our culinary program, right? And it's not chef driven, it's a culinary program. So food and beverage is a very much part of it. So 50% of your revenue should come from the consumption that happens within your club. Now you do all this stuff to induce that consumption by creating a great space and giving putting in the culture. And 50% should come from what we call the dues. Dues are the membership dues that are due, right? So if we were to take a pie chart of the revenue of a stabilized club globally, this should be the pie chart. Obviously, food and beverage has a certain cost associated. Membership has a different economic model associated to it. But it's a model that works. It's a model that works once you hit a certain inflection point on the number of members, right? That is easier said than done. So when I was building an Excel model of, oh yes, when we get to 1,000 members, we'll become profitable. I was right. The road from 0 to 1,000, and then obviously, the real litmus test actually is the renewal rate, right? I can sell you the dream one time around, but do you renew year on year? You will only renew if you see value in what we do. And I think, we're very focused on that. And I'm quite pleased on where we are on that front as well, that people perceive value of paying the subscription, to be part of our community. And it keeps us on our toes. We keep working on making sure that that renewal rate stays, above industry average for us.
What is the industry average?
I think in the global across the world, you have for members clubs, you have about a 15 to 20% attrition on memberships every
Okay.
year. Yeah. So it's an 80% renewal, 20% attrition. And, we're hovering a little over 19. So,
Wow.
we're fairly above industry average. Yeah.
I think these old clubs have like a lumpy system, right? There's a big upfront lump of payment you do, then the ongoing renewal is fairly low cost.
Yeah. I think that's the India model, right? And I think actually we also have a upfront fee that is slightly more, I would say 3 to 4x the annual fee, right?
Okay.
In the old India clubs, I've noticed that,
It's like 15, 20x of the annual fee.
yeah,
So
maybe even 50, 80x sometimes, right?
yes.
The big, I think the different models, right? So the big country clubs around the world still have initiation fees that go into a couple of $100,000. You want to join a fancy golf course in Florida. You want to join Trump's golf course in Florida. I think you need to put $300,000, $400,000. So I think that also exists in the US. But in this contemporary city club, lifestyle club version in the world, in sort of foreign markets, I'm actually seeing the reverse of what we do: a smaller initiation fee, but a 2.5x annual fee. So I think it's market driven to market driven. We have a sort of a sort of one-time fee, and then I think it's a 25% of that as the annual fee every year.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So different models. I don't think there's any right answer. I will give you Club Economics 101 though. They say that your initiation fee should, in theory, at an X number of members, pay for your entire investment in your club. Right?
Okay.
Okay. Your annual fee at an X amount of members should pay the fixed cost of running your club.
Right.
So then the balance revenue that you make, right, should be just a variable cost. So the food and beverage always has a cost of goods sold. So that should be your margin, profit margin. Put together at an inflection point, this does become a profitable business and a fairly profitable business.
Okay. That's it. You've given me a lot of clarity on the business model. What is that number at which you are covering both your investment and your fixed cost? And how many
Yeah,
members?
so I don't know there's an exact sign, but I think anywhere between 1,000 to about 1,500 members, in that range, the business starts to become very interesting at a unit level.
Okay. And what are the membership numbers for Gurgaon, Mumbai, Hyderabad? And what's the timeline? Like, first, let's talk about the timeline. We'll come to this later. So, I think it was around 2015 or so that you were thinking of this. Just take me through the time. Like, how did it start?
Listen, 2014, 15, I started thinking about it. I had a couple of false starts in terms of finding part. It's a big amount of capital I needed. I didn't have the money. So I had a couple of false starts on who I would partner with, how would I get the real estate, so it took me about 2.5 years to figure that out. And I kind of gave up 3 or 4 times in that 2.5 years because I was at this very strange conundrum where I couldn't raise the money till had the real estate. I couldn't lock up the real estate till I had the money, and these developers could smell the fear in my eyes when I'd go meet them, even though I tried to hide it. So, I was stuck in this sort of vicious, sort of negative feedback loop of not being able to close the real estate and as a result, not being able to raise the capital and what have you. But I did manage in 2016 to get through that first hurdle with a developer who had already agreed to become a partner. And we just didn't. So he was not a developer; he was a landowner. He just happened to have this piece of real estate, and continues to remain a very large shareholder, partner, and almost like a co-founder to us, and a great relationship that we have. So we got lucky. We got lucky because that can make or break your business. So in 2016, we locked up the piece of real estate. In 2017,
This is in Gurgaon.
in Gurgaon, it was on Golf Course Road in a building called Horizon Center that had just got built, but the Golf Course Road hadn't got built, and people were like, "Where are you?" So it's pre-Golf Course Road. It used to take you 50 minutes from Cyber City to Horizon Center. It takes you 7 minutes now. So I think that infrastructure was still getting developed. Those who were developing it knew what it was going to do. Those who were just observing it had no idea that what this mess was going to become like. I think just were hoping that it would become something great. But now when you look back, I think we ended up building our first club in probably the best real estate location
Yeah.
in all of NCR and probably one of the best buildings in all of India. So
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so like I said, after not being able to find a piece of real estate, we ended up at the best. So I look back and perhaps that was some luck, some grit, some sort of not giving up, combination of that sort of fell into place. But we went into design in
And
2016.
what was the arrangement? Was it like a revenue share or a fixed rental that you?
No, it was arm's length rental. The gentleman sort of also gave us the property, also invested, but it was an arm's length
Okay.
rental. So
Okay.
yeah, and continues to be a partner. It continues to be a very meaningful partner in our business, and
Yes.
and someone who is, like I said, it's like almost a co-founder with us. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, we started design in 2016. In 2017, we went into construction. I'd never built anything in my life before, by the way. So it was a bit of a baptism by fire. And 2018, June, we opened the Quorum in Gurgaon. And 1 or 2 years struggled, lacked credibility, Akshay. Uh, I may have known a lot of people, but going up to them and saying, "Hey, give me a couple of lakhs upfront fee, and this will be annual fee, and this is what I'm going to do," when the category didn't exist, and people are like, "What are you talking about? Why would I pay to come and dine? And what is this? And where's the swimming pool? Where are the tennis
Yeah.
courts? How can you call yourself a club?" And then the very legitimate question: will you survive next year? If I pay you this money, are you gonna, you've taken 35,000 square feet. What's wrong with you? And by the way, Hyderabad is 86,000 square feet, and I feel it's too small. So at the time, we sort of suffered, rightfully so, from a massive credibility gap in the mind of the consumer. And instead of giving up, I think it made us work even harder and deliver, great quality programming and ideas and food and beverage and excellent service. And my wife and I were at the club every day, and it was a tough journey. We lost money for the first 2 years. And many times during the first years, I said, "Shit, we made a mistake." We were just not getting that. You know, you know, we were just not hitting that inflection point on growth, and we were trying lots of different things, and hustling a lot, and then boom, COVID happened, and then I said, "Now we're really dead." So I don't know. Do you want me to carry on what happened after
Yes.
that?
Yes, please.
Or
Yes,
yeah,
please. It's
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. So
One
actually,
question before we come to COVID. Uh, what worked then? Like how did the first 100 members get signed up? What worked in terms of the marketing investments that you did?
There was, I don't even know what marketing meant or what social media meant. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I was the first time entrepreneur, you're kind of just figuring out and talking to people and making all sorts of mistakes. But I think fundamentally, we started the club with 100 members, right? So we started the club with 100 members and we
Okay.
grew to about 500 members pre-COVID, roughly. I can't remember the exact number, but it was around that. But the first 500 were, listen, yeah, I normally, private members clubs say, please apply. We will see whether, you fit the bill.
Yeah.
I was interviewed. So I was the one who was being interviewed. I was the other way around.
Yes.
I joke with a couple of my members, what I call our founder members. They would meet me and they were like, sorry, who are you? What are you doing? I had to give them the full spiel. I had to kind of sell every one of them. So listen, I leveraged my personal relationships. I kind of, I told people that I just had to join, and some of them just supported me because they're like, this guy has enthusiasm and he's going, I think he's mad. I don't know what he's going to do, but slowly, listen, I think credibility gets built by delivering, right? It doesn't get built by marketing, and credibility gets built by delivering day after day after day and consistently trying to deliver the experience. And I think that's really what we focused on doing. And yeah, so it was tough the first year, and because and when you're creating a new category, and by the way, if we have the time, we can talk about our new business, which is again a new category that we're creating. It takes a little time for customers to understand who you are, what is the value proposition, and why should they pay for it.
Uh, for example, with a lot of SaaS companies, they have like a freemium model where they give you something free and then to show you the value and then convert you into a paid subscriber. And this is essentially also a subscription business at the end of the day. What were some of those uh, growth hacks which worked for you in terms of uh, like, it could be something like asking members to bring their friends along for certain events, which gives them a taste of it, or what were some of those things that worked?
Yeah, so listen, that's actually yeah. So you're bang on. I think it's to quote Bob Deadman again. He said, and it's exactly a quote from him. He says, "The members we have, we want to keep, and mainly through them get others." So that's the greatest source of members is the referenceability. So yeah, so the events, but it's a double-edged sword, right? You kind of make yourself too porous, and you like people say, "Why should I pay a subscription? I can come anytime," right? So so there was a balancing act of how much to do it, how not to do it. And actually, I don't know, actually, I grew up with a lot of influence. My family had a lot of access. I think that worked against me because someone told me Delhi is a city where uh, they want it's a crab mentality. They want to pull you down, right? They don't root for you initially, but if you survive their criticism and their sort of skepticism, then they root for you. But again, it's an inflection point of acceptability, right? So even the people I knew kind of worked against it. You were like, oh, actually, I became like the talk of town of how this is the worst idea ever, right? Amongst the circles that I was going to go after. So, but I think the key is it didn't bring me down. It actually fired me up even more to prove them wrong, right? And yeah, I still face some skepticism there out there, but you know what? Bring it. I will prove you wrong. And it's sort of you personally have proved the idea wrong that that we do add value to what we're doing here. So.
Mm. So COVID hit, you were at 500 members in Gurgaon by that time. Uh,
So
I would
yeah,
not have break even, right? 500 would
no,
still.
we were not breaking even. We were losing money, and there were many times during that time, during those first 2-3 years, where I was convinced we had done something wrong. I personally leveraged myself very, very heavily, because I didn't have to pony up my share of the capital. So I was under a lot of pressure and stress. We had friends and family who had invested. Some of them were starting to get a bit antsy. Yeah, we were not in a good space. And then, we were hand to mouth, month on month to meet salaries, working capital, meet our statutory dues. And then suddenly, boom, you're shut for business, but you still have all these liabilities out there. And actually, I saw the lockdown coming on 16th of March. So 22nd of March, 2020 is the day India announced it. I know because it was my birthday, so I know that date in the back of my head. But on the 16th of March, I knew it was coming because the writing was on the wall. Other countries were shutting down. So I cleaned the club. I took all the food out, distributed to my staff, and told them all to go home. So, we didn't have anyone stuck getting home or what have you. I said, just go home, figure it out. I'll call you when we have something, but we're shutting down. So we shut on the 16th of March, a couple of days in fact, I had taken my first holiday on the 8th of March, which actually didn't end up being a holiday because, I said, shit, we're dead. But when we were about to, so obviously everyone took a massive haircut, there was no real outflow, but we didn't know how to restart. And then coming to June, we realized that we were going to come out of that lockdown. I wrote to all our members actually, and I said, listen, your annual dues are going to be coming up every month, depending on when you joined over the next year. If you pay us upfront now, I'll give you a 10-15% discount, 100% paid out. I started COVID with a lot of cash, right? I started the reopening with a lot of cash. No restaurant. All my restaurant friends on my part, they were all out of cash, right? There were no bank loans available for our service industry. So we started with a whole bunch of cash. What we did with it is we went super into, we spent some of that money on our protocols, safety, clean the air, what have you. And what I realized coming out of it, there was this revenge demand. People wanted to come here because it was a predictable environment. They knew that we could control the environment a little better than sort of spaces that were open to the public. So we bounced back really quickly. In fact, people for that year and a half, because COVID, we went in and out of lockdown a couple of times. People would only come to the Quorum, right? Because they said, my parents haven't gone out. I don't want to take them to a public. People worry about the elderly. We'll take them to Quorum. We did a lot of hacks. We put like air quality filters. We put all sorts of stuff into our place. And, we could actually administer social distancing that a lot of people perhaps couldn't. And so that was one trend that happened. The second trend that happened was people started to realize that, hey, I can work from anywhere. That third space relevance became, we are always designed ourselves as a third space. But the need for that third space became apparent to the consumer post-COVID. So that was the second catalyst. And the third catalyst actually happened on 22nd March. On the day we went to lockdown, the India head of Blackstone Real Estate, who'd been a mentor of mine for many years, were born on the same day. So I kind of messaged saying, hey, get ready. I said, I hope, all the best, man. We're getting into this crazy time. And there was another club in Bombay that had gone bankrupt just before that. It was the A Club owned by the Yes Bank founder. And that's a longer story, but I won't get into it. He had gone to jail and Blackstone had bought the building and repossessed the asset. He told me on 22nd of March, get ready for Bombay. So during COVID, I was planning the takeover of the second club when I didn't even know how to fix the first club. But, that's good luck and being at the right place at the right time. So, during the various lockdowns, we actually planned Bombay. My wife and I traveled, almost 35 times to Bombay. Flights were empty. We stayed the Four Seasons. I don't even want to tell you what I used to pay for the Four Seasons during that time, and because it was right next to the club.
What's the location of the Bombay?
It's in Lower Parel, so it's very close to home. So, we spent, and I think April 2022. So, the last lockdown was January 2022, right? And in April 2022, we opened, so this COVID disruption, revenue picked up, membership grew, members had supported us, and we went from 1 to 2 clubs. So yeah, it was a crazy time. Most people were wondering, are they going to survive? Sunday, we went from that position to just trying to grow, and obviously came with a lot of other new growing problems and pains and what have you, but we still continue to solve them as we grow. But yeah, so COVID was an interesting accelerator for us.
And the Mumbai club was also on a fixed rental, not a revenue share.
I cannot tell you what deal I got in Mumbai club because it's a special situation transaction. But, but yeah, it was we were just lucky to be at the right place at the right time. Let's just put it that way.
Amazing, amazing. And what's the size of the Mumbai club?
Yeah, at the time when we took it, it was about 56,000 square feet. It had
Wow.
a, 35 to 40,000 square foot club and about 15, 18,000 square feet of co-working attached to the club. Since then, as of today, it's now we've grown that to about 85. We increased the co-working part of our business in Bombay.
Okay. So is the co-working like a regular co-working where anyone can come and take either a desk for a day or a week or a month or whatever? Or is it for members only? Or like how
No,
does
no, no. It's not for members. It's slightly nuanced. First of all, we're a hospitality powered co-working space that's co-located to our club. It's not an individual place. So we're very much positioned at a premium. It's for the lawyers, the bankers, the private equity people. We don't go after the enterprise clients. And because it's co-located to the club, if you become a tenant in our co-working space, you also become, or one or two of the people within your senior leadership team become members. So we were bundling the membership with the co-working. As a result, we were able to position ourselves much higher than everyone else. I think we trade at a 40, 50% premium on price to any other player in the country. But again, it's small, it's boutique. They're not large spaces and they are for long-term rental. They're not like a day co-working space,
how,
so, yeah,
how many seats?
it's not a core part of what we do. It's an adjacent strategy, one of many that we're going to have actually as we grow our business. Actually, I want to just kind of point out here, we've started with the club business. We're a lifestyle hospitality platform now, right? And I'd say, that's really where we are going to add a lot of complementary adjacencies over the next 5 to 10 years into our business. With this unique flavor of hospitality that is community, design, ideas led, which I don't think anyone else is doing.
Okay, interesting. So from Mumbai to Hyderabad, how did that happen? When did you
You
open?
know, Yeah, so around 20, so it's funny. Actually, the Hyderabad conversation started pre Mumbai. In 2019, I came to Hyderabad. Again, it was a Blackstone and Satwa joint owned property. Our friends in Blackstone introduced us to this idea that, hey, why don't you go and look at our development in Hyderabad? So we came here in 2019, but then obviously COVID happened and Bombay happened. And so then, sort of we lost steam. I think once we opened Bombay, we then started to look at Hyderabad, and we have two components to Hyderabad. We opened the club. Plus, what we started discussing at that time, and what we started to see, is that there's an amenitization, hospitality amenitization happening in the office building. And by the way, today it's becoming much and much clearer. But we were talking about this since 2019 that the worlds of hotels and offices are converging. The role of the office building is changing. We, by mistake, had a front row view of this because our two clubs were in office buildings. So yeah, in Hyderabad, this developer, Satwa, had the foresight along with Blackstone to build this amenity block. They didn't quite know what they were going to do with it. So this is Vivek, why don't you have a look at it and see what you could do to it? So I said, I'll take the top 2 floors and I'll make a club, and then I'll take another floor and I'll make an amenity, a meeting and events and collaboration space for the future of work. And they were like, what is this going to be? And I was like, I think it's like, basically, why would you go for conferences inside a hotel? Let's use conference banqueting venues inside office building. And I saw one player globally is doing it and we're doing quite well, but only one player. And I said, listen, I feel like this is the future of where the office building is going to go. And that was the birth of our brand called District 150. And they supported us. They supported this idea. They also felt it was a good idea because they had built this amenity block. They didn't know what to do with it. I had this crazy idea to do it. So, I was fortunate enough to have their support, and we built District 150. We're about 6 or 10 months into that. And I'm very, very excited about what we're going to do with District 150. I think it's a very big idea. I don't think anyone really even understands what we've done, but I now like that. I like being a little early. There's a little bit of pain you go through when you do that. And I'll tell you where we got this from. We had built a small banquet room in Quorum, Gurgaon. It's about 2,000 square feet, but same in Bombay. And we were doing a disproportionate amount of revenue from that. And I felt like people didn't want to go to hotels anymore, right? There was no differentiation. You had these banquet halls with sari carpets and chandeliers. There was no like lifestyle. There was no, high quality service. You had this empty hall that was a pre-function space that 9 or 10 times had bad exhaust and smelled of, fried food. And this is the experience in all hotels. And so I felt that there was a gap. And I thought, even from an urban planning perspective, it was more sustainable to have these office buildings are empty at night. They have plenty of parking. Why create new real estate? And yeah, District 150 was an idea that was born 2 years ago. We opened about 8, 10 months ago now, and we're super excited about this brand and what it's going to do. It's a much more scalable sort of pivot for us as well. Club business by definition, I think we can only build 5, 6, 7 in the country, but I think District 150 can grow a lot of that and has the same DNA of what we do. So it's not some sort of massive deviation of capability that we're building.
Yeah, amazing. Before I come to digging deeper on District 150, how much time did it take you to hit 500 in Mumbai? Like in Gurgaon, it took you about 2+ years to hit 500.
So Mumbai was a bit strange. We inherited, there was an erstwhile club that went bankrupt. So we stepped into the shoes of that obligation. So we inherited that. We also opened right after COVID. So Bombay's been a little bit of a mixed bag, also the location. But I'd give you Hyderabad, maybe more relevant, in a normal, like for like environment. It took us from the day of opening. So while we sold some early members to 500, from the day of opening to 500, including the early members, is about 2.5 years. In Hyderabad, it's 4 months.
Wow. Amazing. Basically, you
Yeah.
perfected that playbook. Plus, the credibility was already built. The
I
awareness.
don't think we perfected the playbook. I think we're still learning on that. I think the credibility gap got so I think the playbook we're not perfected it, nowhere near. I think we got a long way to go and we're still learning on that one. But I think what we did is by building free and I don't think people were doubting whether we are going to survive tomorrow or whether we'll exist tomorrow. So, it's not a tell me world. Then suddenly became a show me world, right? I just say, hey, go and see what we're doing here. I don't need to. I
Yeah.
don't have to tell you that I will do this, which I had to do in the initial, club.
It's amazing. What is the number of members now for each of these? Gurgaon, Mumbai, Hyderabad?
So I think on a collective basis, we have about 3,000 strong member base. If you include partners, which are spouses on either side of the orientation, who are full members in their own right as well, because that's kind of how our standard membership works. We're 5,000 strong today.
Okay. The fees is the same whether you are single or you're married. Like the spouse is free, or is there a separate subscription fees?
No, so we have many, many tiers of memberships. So the standard membership is for you and your partner. So I don't want to say free because it's not an add-on. They're equal focus for us, right?
Got it.
So let's say it's a 2-for-1 deal, for lack of a better word. I don't want to call it free.
Got
And then we have many, many different categories of expat, under 30, under 35. We have a women-only membership. We don't have a men-only membership. And because we're very, very focused on getting the right gender balance in our club, we got a corporate membership, we got an outstation membership category. So different varies of fee. I think our fees also vary from city to city because certain cities have much larger facilities like Hyderabad. I think over time it will start to kind of normalize, but right now we have a few sort of different fee structures across different cities and different categories as well.
What will be this year's revenue overall for combined Quorum, District 150, ballpark number?
No, we're a private company. Actually, we don't share that detail, but
Ballpark range.
it's let's just say it's a significant number of revenue and a significant number of profit, and we're cash flow positive here.
Wow.
So yeah, we don't share our numbers
Like
yet.
two-digit crores, three-digit crores?
Well above 3-digit crores. I mean, in the 3-digit
Wow.
crores, but there, yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Incredible. So let's talk about District 150 now. So this is essentially like a B2B offering. This would be for corporates and who want to run events.
No, no. So, no, there are three components to it. So I'll tell you. So let me step back for a minute. I'll tell you what we saw. There's $1 trillion of commercial real estate assets globally that is lying almost empty. Okay. People are not going back to work. Now in India, we're still, herding the cattle back to work because, we're giving them a danda and coming there. And I think it's a question of time, and it'll start with certain industries first and then to others where I think remote hybrid, sort of more flex in work environments is going to be the next, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen. But I think there's a structural gear shift that's happening that side. What we realize is that the role of the office building is changing. In this new environment, attracting talent, managing attrition, retaining talent is becoming a massive sort of focus. It always has been. It's become an increased focus for people. So we said, okay, how do we build a great environment within an office building that kind of ticks some, if not all of these boxes? So that was very much the original thesis. So the first is we said, listen, if a workforce is distributed, they'll need to come together every now and then, right? So you need meeting events and collaboration spaces, right? So the three segments of the market that we cater to: the B2B, which is absolutely correct, the corporate segment, the conferences, the meetings, the town halls, the hackathons, what have you, right? Then I have a B2B to C segment, right? Which is basically social events. So again, actually with design, we said our place must transform for work, social, and culture. And I'll come to the third one. So for social, birthday parties, celebrations, a wedding. I haven't had a wedding yet in the District 150, but I will have a wedding. And I told my friends at Blackstone that the day I have a wedding in an office building where I have a groom riding up on a horse, please, I'm going to send you a photograph. Please share that with Mr. Steven Schwartzman, who would have rethought, what an office building is. It's a matter of time. I promise you, I am going to do that. I'm going to make sure that someone gets married at District 150. So B2B to C. Now, why I call that the B2B to C? Because, you work with a lot of event planners and what have you. And over time, you have a B2B plus a B2C strategy within that segment of social. Then we said, hey, culture, right? Consumption of culture, we're moving towards an experience economy. Zomato just went and bought, Paytm, a ticketing business. They're launching something called District. Funny enough, they haven't announced it yet. So if you heard it here, I'm aware of that. Swiggy is also planning to do something around the experience economy. And why are they doing that, right? Because they're seeing that the consumption of culture is an evolution of where we're heading. So we've been seeing this 7, 8 years because we've been programming our place with all sorts of culture. So we said, where is the consumption? There are no venues for that. So can our venue also be for comedy shows, music events, all sorts of experiences, right? Pop-ups and, live cooking classes and, painting classes and what have you. But the space has to be appropriate for that. So we designed our space for all three segments, right? What we also then realized is that the landowner or the commercial developer property, which by the way, luckily for us, is 75, I would say 85% of office buildings are owned by institutional clients, not by individual developers, right? But it's Blackstone, Brookfield, Xander, Tata, whatever. They're all institutional capital, GIC, whatever. They're all the office owners in the world today, right? Or in India. So then what we realized is that with consumption culture, we could create spaces that could be great for the consumption culture. We could really engage this place with really interesting stuff that's happening all the time. The landlords could go to the HR and say, hey, we've got this fun stuff happening. It's not only for you, it's for everyone, but we've got this happening. And the HR is saying fighting this retention, attrition problem can create a better work environment without the headache of doing it. So, they might think 10, 15% more. So I think we've created this business that, symbiotically sort of features all of them. So we have the three segments: great food and beverage. We've partnered with Subco. We have a great coffee experience at District 150. We're doing a wine bar now. We're still waiting for a little bit of our liquor license to come through, but we're going to do a wine bar. We have a fantastic new restaurant called Shilla, which is a homegrown brand that's modern Indian cuisine. So there's lifestyle, young, hip, cultural sort of space, B2C celebration space, B2B corporate space. And they all coexist at District 150. Um, but please come and see it. It's very unique. We're very excited about it. And I think and it is purpose built for the office building of tomorrow. I'm not going to do a District 150 in a standard location. It is purpose built for the office building of tomorrow because we think the role of that office building tomorrow is changing.
Mm. What is the size of District 150 in Hyderabad?
It's 26,000 square.
And I'm assuming these restaurants would be open to non-members as well.
And it's open to everyone. District 150 is open to everyone. And basically, actually, we're creating the amenity stack. We keep adding to it. We can add a wellness to it. A developer comes and say, hey, in that micro market, we need to put a gym. We'll add. So we're creating the amenity stack for the office building of tomorrow, right? And putting it under in a consolidated sort of piece of real estate opposed to a distributed, it's यहाँ पे restaurant खोलो, यहाँ पे restaurant खोलो, यहाँ Starbucks and whatever. We're putting it all together. So it's more efficient as well for a developer, for consumer as well. So,
and the thesis would be that an office building which has a District 150 in it would get a slightly better rental yield.
Absolutely. Not would. It is.
Okay.
Number
It's
one.
more appealing
Number
for-
two. And number two, the thesis is we're so much more creative and inspiring a place than a upscale hotel. Okay. So why would you, I think there's no, and with our hospitality, which I think stands shoulder to shoulder, if not better than them, you would choose us as a venue to have your events here. So I think there's a gap in the market, right? The venue business is, we're trying to disrupt the venue business in a new avatar within a new construct of an asset class.
Amazing. And like you said, this is extremely scalable. There would be like maybe potential of 100 District 150s in India.
Well, I don't know. I actually, 100 is a big number. Actually, we're at the end of the day, these things are service businesses. Services business by definition, IT scale. I mean, it's people dependent. So, if I don't think I'd survive if I did 100, but I think it's super scalable. I think we want to be in the best graded buildings in the country. I think it's scalable outside of the country. I think it's a global brand.
Yes.
I really feel it's a global brand. And I want to kind of add one more thing actually. So Quorum means the minimum amount of people required to make a decision. District 150 is basically borrowed from this very famous anthropologist called Robin Dunbar. And Dunbar sort of has a theory that he studied the brain of the Homo sapien. And he said that we can only have 150 stable, meaningful relationships. So tribes start to disintegrate after 150. And, in the evolution of society, law and order, religion, all these social constructs came so that this disintegration never happened. But if you strip all of it out, 150 is the maximum amount of collaboration. So one's minimum, a little bit more exclusive, one's the maximum. So that's kind of how the brands come together as well.
Amazing. What, like you said, service business is very hard to scale. Do you have some sort of a playbook of scaling quality? Like, that sounds extremely difficult. There is not something which, say like, in a way you could say Zomato is also in the service business, but for them, they through that app, people know what they need to do, whether it's the restaurant or the like, so on. There is a certain consistent experience throughout the country that you get with Zomato that has been their playbook. What is your playbook? Because you're in a very different league in terms of the high touch service delivery that you need to do. So how are you doing?
Yeah, listen, Zomato's on the commodity side of the service business where they're delivering what a restaurant is making, which is probably, the more creative and artistic part of what they do. So I think probably a bad example from a comparison perspective. Listen, I don't know what the hack is. All I know is it's tough, right? And I think you can adapt some amount of technologies that we're doing. With AI, we're doing something very interesting in trying to create some muscle memory of who our members are, how they're using the club, to be able to communicate to them more effectively and to create institutional memory where if people come and go, the memories remain. So I think there's a little bit of a hack there, but I think fundamentally, service businesses are tough to scale. How do you attract talent? How do you retain them? When the industry is growing, so there's a fight for talent. Um, I think part of it is building a good culture. Part of it is doing something interesting that attracts people. Part of it is your brand getting a little bit more credible. There's no straight answer. It's not easy. I spend a disproportionate amount of my time on people, and I think I'll continue to do that as I build this business. I don't think there's any getting away from it. And
What is
every entrepreneur I speak to in the hospitality business echoes the same thing. So it's not specific to us. It's tough. It's tough to manage.
what's the what's the approach towards people? Is it hire someone who's got a few basics in him and then train them, or find people who have event industry experience? So, like, how do you build your team?
Yeah. Listen, I think you have to have a training engine. You have to have a training engine in your organization across all departments. Bring young people, bring people. I think we in India. I'm not from a hospitality space. I entered from the outside of the industry, so I have sometimes a fresher perspective or ability to do some first principles thinking in people. I think we overstaff. So maybe staff less, pay more. Maybe that's part of the solution. We haven't done it yet. We've been thinking about it. Empower more people. And change the pay grade. On a employee per square foot basis, we're super overstaffed as an industry in India, when compared to other parts of the world, right? There's a lot of middle management and layers that get filled in, and, managers with jackets who actually, I think it was, Mr. Nakulan, and was one of the stalwarts, I'm forgetting who said this, and was told to me, and I quoted, he said that, the minute we give you jackets, you don't move your arms because you get straight jacketed, they're suddenly giving orders. I think part of it is culture as well. My wife and I actually, when we're at our clubs, we actually clear tables ourselves as founders. It doesn't matter. Like to me, I get on the ladder, I fix lights. I actually enjoy that part of it. So I think by doing it, I want to prove the culture that listen, there's dignity in every part of what we do, and everyone should be doing everything, but it's tough to, we're trying it. It's not easy to filter down um, into that. So I think that's one part of it. I think, the more cliche parts, which are true, but cliche what everyone does is, have a fair and equitable culture within your organization where people are treated well, are treated with respect. Again, easier said than done, but, as founders, we try and do that. But yeah, I don't think I have any specific hacks necessarily over and above this. And I think everyone's trying to do that in their own. I don't think we're doing anything unique or different here.
What do you look for when you're hiring?
Yeah. So I don't hire people anymore. I'll be honest with you at a personal level. Um, the kind of direct reportees that hire to me are more at a corporate level. But I was told by an entrepreneur, a tech entrepreneur who is in the hospitality space, a member with us. He told me something quite interesting. He said that I do a psychometric IQ test of everyone in my organization, even the housekeeping person, right? He's saying you just never know where talent is, right? And where curiosity and interest is. So we're something that we're looking to do as well in our hiring issue. But that's with existing clients. Yeah, when you're hiring people, you just never know. It's like a box of chocolates. Sometimes you get good, sometimes you get great, sometimes you get not so good. But I think as an organization, if you are able to put the right systems in places to train people, to help them improve themselves, to be able to objectively assess them on a regular basis, to give them that feedback, and then in like any organization, change what's not working and add to what's you just got to remain nimble. But yeah, I think this continues to remain a focus as we look to scale up business. Will continue to be a focus area for us. Yeah.
And a lot of young people, they're most instinctive business ideas to open a restaurant, open a shack, something in hospitality. Uh, would you want to share any advice for young listeners of this podcast who one day dream of being a hospitality entrepreneur?
Yeah. So listen, the world over, hospitality has the lowest barriers of entry, right? It requires capital, but not a lot of capital. So if you want to open a restaurant, I think you've got to be passionate about what you do. You've got to be passionate about looking after people. I read this fantastic book called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's the story of 11 Madison Park, one of the world's best restaurants. In fact, I made my entire team read it. And if you're getting into hospitality, you should read it as well. I think the intent has to be there. You want to go the extra mile to want to look after people and please people and make sure they're well looked after. If you don't have that inside you, you shouldn't be doing it. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. I think you've got to get the food and beverage right. I think you've got to be maniacal about that and every touch point around that. I tell you an interesting statistic. Actually, one of our shareholders, who was the chairman of Yum Brands in India and set up that entire franchise in South Asia, actually said that global average, 53% of the time people go back to a dining establishment for ambiance. And I'll come back to what ambiance is. 30% of the time they go back for the quality of the food, and 17% of the time they go back for value, right? This is a global average across all segments of dining out, right? Now, ambiance is how you feel when you walk into a place. It's got to do with the lighting, the sound, the service, that quality of how you get greeted, to the quality of how the arrival experience, to the way the waiter comes and enthusiastically sells you and tells you and explains you what you're doing. So 53, to the sound, volume, to the lighting appropriate, to the smell in the restaurant. You can't pinpoint it. It's how you see. 53% of the time you go back for how you were felt, right? Okay. 30% is the qualitative taste. Yeah. And then 70% value. I always say my team, let's focus on 83, but we're not worried about 70. You get the 80 right, you can charge whatever you want to, right? So I think that's yeah, yeah. I think you want to do it, but managing people, and it's tough. Kitchens are tough. My wife looks after our culinary department. Listen, look, my kitchen staff is inside a room without any windows in a heated environment. And, how do you get them motivated and excited to do it every day? And, it's a tough business, right? So, but people may want to get into hospitality entrepreneurship. Just be mindful. I'll tell you another interesting statistic, actually, is that IHM, which is a hospitality management school that has 7 or 8 outlets. Between all of them, they have 14 or 13,000 seats available. This last year, they had only 5,000 applicants, right? So here in a country of 1.4 billion, unemployment is rife. And here you have the hospitality industry. I think the youngsters don't want to get into hospitality as well. So, our industry faces they don't want the hard work. They're all watching Shark Tank. They all want to become tech entrepreneurs, so I don't know, so it compounds this people problem, which is going to continue to, sort of hound us. So be ready to solve that if you want to get into this business. So be ready to think differently around that if you want to get into this business. That would be my advice.
So how does your culinary institute work? You said you have an in-house culinary institute.
Well, not institute. We have a culinary program. And why I call it a culinary program? It's not chef dependent. We're looking to build a fantastic sort of team of chefs that, there's a lot of cross training and cross learning across all our 3 cities. There's a lot of identification of new talent across the board, and making sure that this new talent, gets an opportunity to be innovative, create new stuff, and add value. So I think it's a culinary program. Now, everyone tells me, hey, your chef's great. I said, no, our culinary program is great. So, I'm trying to make it one person not dependent on one person per se, but it's an entire team. So it's not an institute per se. It's a kind of a philosophy of creating a culinary program as opposed to, just hiring a great chef. And I think a lot of people don't understand that different. It's not even a nuance different. It's a fundamental different way in which we did. I give you another interesting statistic. I spoke to our friends at one of the top schools of culinary in the country, and the chefs are not joining hotels. So there's this massive dislocation happening in our industry. because hotels no longer are regarded as great culinary sort of thing. They do banqueting and they do breakfast. When's the last
Yes.
time you went for a meal to a hotel? So and these things will change, but so there's a lot of dislocation happening as some of it plays to our advantage, some of it sort of troubles us, but there is some dislocation happening in the industry.
Fascinating. Essentially, the culinary program is like bringing in standardization. You would be creating standard processes, ways
No,
of.
so that's 101 that everyone does that, right? So I think it's more about innovation. It's more about actually the exact opposite. It's about creating new experiences around food and beverage, experimentation, staying up to trends. We're trying to encourage all our people to tag and follow what's happening globally. On within the food and beverage industry, and really kind of use their creativity to continue to remain one or two steps ahead of the curve in terms of experience. And then obviously the basics are there to make sure that whatever you do in a consistent manner, right? So whether it's the costing or the procurement or making sure that uh, one dish is the same in Bombay or to Gurgaon to Hyderabad or from day to day. That's super important as well in our industry. So getting that balance right is what we focus on.
Fascinating. Do you think we could end with a walkthrough? Can you like carry your laptop around, just give a quick tour? Is that feasible?
Yeah, I can try, but I'm sitting in our club in Hyderabad. So this is our
Yeah.
study lounge, which gets used by members for meetings and events during the daytime. We have a lot of our conversations here. We have a couple of more meeting rooms that are flanking this. We have a beautiful bar
People
that is
can
on
come
one
and
side.
work here, open up their laptop.
Absolutely.
They want
Yeah,
to.
we have an art gallery that wraps around this
Wow.
bar as well. Um, we've got some great pieces of photography here. These are some of the greatest artists in India that in
Wow.
their workshops, we commissioned a photographer for this piece. Um, let me just say, we have a library here. I'm not sure whether you can see it. Or we
Yes.
have a library here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Uh,
Beautiful.
each of our members donate a book actually, and then actually the little piece of resistance of our library, we touch this door, and it opens
Oh,
into a
wow.
it opens into a little secret antechamber.
Oh, wow. This
So
is so
listen,
cool.
the club is a home away from home. It's a place
Yeah.
of work. It's
Mhm.
globally inspired from a design perspective. I think
Yeah.
it's unique that it has different little nooks and corners. And yeah, so this is one of the floors of our club. I'll show you one last piece before I won't take you. It's almost 100,000 square feet, so it would take me forever to show you around. But so this is the art gallery that sort of goes around, and then this is an interesting piece of art that we got commissioned. It's a light well. It's a stairway that goes up to the top floor. But
Wow.
this little piece of art was inspired by the concept of murmuration. Murmuration is when birds, the starlings, come together and fly in formation. It's said that they're exchanging ideas and collaborating. And this is a play on our members coming together in our place. Yes. We had a very talented
Wow.
artist, Ankon Mitra, do this for us. Yes. So, but yeah, you want one more? Should I take you for a 1 second more round? And
Who's
so
the
we're
creative brain behind all of the art that
yeah,
I see here?
well, it's not the art. It's the look and feel. My wife and I both are very much involved in the design, but my wife's got a great eye and she drives that. This is our outdoor space with a pool um, and a gazebo, and this is our main members area, our main members lounge
Gorgeous.
and bar. This is our bar.
Thank you so much for your time, Vivek, and for helping me understand the business and also the sneak peek at the experience of it.